am Campbell Miller, husband, father of two, and feature film director with EWTN. Faith and Life tells the stories of Catholics living their life through their faith. These inspiring people tell us where they have come from and where God is taking them. In this episode of Faith and Life, I am in sunny Gibraltar. Gibraltar is a British overseas territory at the southern tip of Spain. We are only 12 miles from Africa, where the Mediterranean meets the Atlantic Ocean. Throughout the ages, Gibraltar has been a military fortress, from the Moorish conquest in Europe until becoming British in 1704. But more recently, it has been a pivotal stronghold in both World War I and World War II. Gibraltar is known as the Rock of Gibraltar, or simply the Rock. It is home to the only wild monkey population in Europe. I will be chatting to Father Paul Bear, a Gibraltarian who is parish priest of St. Joseph's Parish in the South District. He is also the chaplain to the local prison and a good friend of the Missionaries of Charity. Father, you grew up in Gibraltar. What was it like back then?
We had very few things, but we were very happy, as they say, you know. We grew up, loved and wanted, which is an amazing blessing, you know, I mean, an amazing blessing. I think one of the greatest blessings today is good parenthood. Mm-hmm. And I think the worst crime against humanity is bad parenthood. And I was fortunate to have good parents. We lost our dad when we were young. He had, he got cancer and he died. But what I do remember vividly is the devotion my mum had to him whilst he was sick.
Right. Did that have an effect on you
Absolutely,
going forward?
Absolutely. In fact, I remember once talking to one of my brothers, and the three of us completed our education and all this kind of thing, all because my mother sacrificed herself. She was a very good seamstress and dressmaker. And for a while, when the frontier was closed, it was difficult for people to get things here. My mother used to make wedding dresses. We'd go to sleep with the noise of the machine.
And you mentioned there the frontier being closed. What did you mean by that?
Well, we couldn't go to Spain, for example. My mum is Spanish,
right.
Was Spanish, and she had her own mother across the border. Mm-hmm. She couldn't go and see her, except once a year when we would go through Morocco,
right,
to go and see. My mum's mum died, and she could never get to the funeral. But it was difficult times. It was very difficult times. I mean, one of the things that Franco stopped, among other things, was oxygen to the hospital, and believe it or not, altar wine.
Right.
So in those days, you had to use altar wine.
Yes.
And I remember the older priest telling us about it, you know, the fact that, what are we going to do? They had to get altar wine, believe it or not, from Morocco, a Muslim country.
Mm-hmm. And you've got a few photographs here for us to actually look at. And I'm just noticing there's a lovely photograph here, and I think this is with your family.
That's right.
And that's your mother and father there?
My mum and my father, and this is a young girl who used to help my mum with us.
Also in this album, there is this great photograph of what I can see a procession taking place.
Yeah, this was a school procession.
You took Our Lady out through the streets?
Yeah, our teachers. Uh-huh. That was on my first communion. Mm-hmm. So it was in 1965.
And back then, did you know what was ahead of you? Was there an inkling of joining the priesthood?
No. I admired the priest, though. That I do remember.
Yeah. At what point then in your life did you decide to become a priest?
I was nearly 18. I was doing my A-levels, I remember. And there was an episode with the bishop who asked me and a friend of mine to go and get him some cigarettes. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I don't know why, but I just said, "Oh, Father, one of these days I'd like to come and speak to you." And he said, "No, speak to me now." Which I did. And then I just said, because I didn't know what to tell him, I said, "No, I was thinking about the priesthood." And he broke down. To see this man broken down with joy. He didn't break down because he was scared, right? It was very bitter. That's where the ball starts rolling.
Yeah. Then, at that time, did you go on and join the seminary?
No, well, I would have, but it was impossible at that stage because all the applications for entrance were finished. So I had to wait for a year. I did some nursing, which was an amazing thing, and all because of this other priest, who later became bishop as well, who said to me, "Now, Paul, if you are thinking of holding the body of Christ in your hands at the altar, you need to hold the body of Christ in suffering." Mm-hmm. And those were prophetic words, of course, because it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever done to be confronted with death. We were confronting our father's death earlier on in our lives as brothers, but now I was positively involved in actually helping somebody die, for example.
You were 18 at that time?
Well, I was 18 then.
Yeah, and then I suppose when your father passed away, what age were you then?
No, I was about 11.
11. You spent a year then nursing, and then where did you go to seminary?
I went to the English College in Valladolid with an amazing history of holiness, the martyrs especially, those who surrendered their lives to Christ in a total giving, a wholehearted giving, to the point of dying. And I remember the night before we were ordained deacons and we took our vows of celibacy, for example, we had to swear an oath, following the tradition of the martyrs, that we would be ready to give our lives to Christ.
Yes.
And we had to write the oath and then sign it on the altar the night before. And I remember that has been the loneliest moment in my life. I've never experienced loneliness as deep as that, because this was a decision I had to take. I was not fully aware of what it meant. Would I give my life for Christ? It was an amazing moment.
Yeah.
But I signed it, and I said, "Well, now, this is your life, it's not mine."
And you handed your life over to Christ.
And I don't regret it at all.
Father, here's a photograph here of your ordination.
This is my ordination to the diaconate.
This is your mother?
My mum.
Yeah.
My other brother was in England then, so he didn't come.
That must have been a beautiful moment for your mother.
I was a very naughty boy, I must say. My two brothers could have been fantastic priests. But I don't know why God chose me.
Yeah. So was it a surprise to her?
I do know one thing, that the day I left for seminary, she took me to the airport, of course, her life changed. My father was more religious than my mum. My mum was religious as well, but she was more a good Catholic, but not committed kind of thing. The day I left, she began going to daily mass, and she went to daily mass for the rest of her life.
In this photograph here, this must be your ordination to the priesthood.
Yep. Bishop Tripp. My bishop, the man who broke down when I told him I was thinking of priesthood, he had died suddenly, actually, before he could see me. He saw me a deacon, but he didn't ordain me deacon. After I was ordained, I came back here. I was sent to the cathedral as a curate. I was very active in everything. I got involved in everything that I could.
So you had all that energy of youth.
Father Paul is very much a man of the people. So he is certainly very well connected locally, and everybody, to mention Father Paul, everybody knows him. It'd be interesting if you mentioned Father Bear. I mean, a lot of people would say, who is that? But Father Paul, everybody knows. From the times that he's worked in the hospital, the time that he's doing now as chaplain in the prison. He's also the parish priest of a very major parish in Gibraltar, but also his years in the cathedral.
Father Paul, we're here in the shrine of Our Lady of Europe. What does it mean to you being in the shrine?
Yeah, well, it means a lot, actually. I would say more than a lot. I celebrated my first Mass here in 1984, the 30th of June. And I've always felt very close to Mary. I feel that in my journey as a priest, she's had a very special place in my life. I was ordained in '84, and then I just started. During my time in Valladolid, we heard in the news or on television that Mother Teresa of Calcutta was coming to Madrid to open a house, and I was very interested. Myself and another lad, we decided to go down to Madrid for that weekend, and it was very special. We met the most amazing woman. She was so holy. And it was striking, And we started, the good thing about it was that we spoke English, she spoke no Spanish, so she wanted us beside her all the time while she was there.
What a wonderful moment.
I drove her in the car to different places, and it was very amazing. And as a result, Mother Teresa becomes someone very important in my life. One day there was the superiors of West Bengal were meeting for retreat in a place called Dam. And I was in Kalighat, the home for the dying, which is a very special home. And one of the sisters comes and says, "Mother wants to see you." And I thought, me? So I make my way back to Mother's house, and Mother says, "Look, sisters are in Dam. They're starting retreat, but priest has not come." "Yes, so I'd like you to go and do that." I said to myself, retreat? I don't even know how to spell retreat, let alone give retreat. And I said, "But Mother, what am I going to talk to them about?" The love of God. And I thought, so off I went to Dam, and I started giving them this retreat. And thank God that that's the end of the second day, the priest came. And the priest was the famous Father Tom Forrest. He was a very famous preacher. I think he's still alive. He was delayed in getting to India. When I got back to Calcutta and Mother was thanking me and all this kind of thing, she said, "Now make my sisters holy." What do you mean? You know, she was saying, look, come here as many times as you can, but I don't want you to come just to make basically fool of yourself, doing all sorts of things everywhere, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Come to make my sisters holy. And you know what happens? That there are two ways in which one can deal with situations. One is reacting, which is a very human thing, or responding.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more in the line of grace, I suppose. But I responded. I was a very young priest. In fact, at the beginning when I started giving them retreats, I think they saw me as a kindergarten priest, you know what I mean?
The tremendous work is done over the years with the Sisters of Mother Teresa and the co-workers, by supporting them, by being there for them, by the way he's always been available to retreats for the sisters, or simply to help them with providing them with whatever their needs may have been. You may be aware that the sisters do not as such go around asking, but they believe in providence. So he's always been very good in keeping the balance of saying, sister, what do you need? And he's been able to provide it.
There's a lovely photograph of actually you here with Mother Teresa.
Yeah, that was in London. It's funny, I remember this perfectly well. I already was working with the sisters in Morocco. I was in Tangier, and one of the sisters said, Mother's going to London tonight. And I thought, oh, so I got back home that evening, and I rang London. And who gets the phone but Mother? I said, Mother, it's Father Paul from Gibraltar. Oh, from Djibouti, she said. She said, come and see me.
Right.
And I thought, she must be getting old, because obviously she thinks that I'm living down the road, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I remember rushing to the airport because there was a plane going, and the girl said, oh, no, this plane is full. I said, please, I need to get to London tonight. The plane is full, Father. At that point, who walks behind this girl? The captain of the plane. So I called him, excuse me, sir. And he says, yes. I said, I need to get to London. I've got to see Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And names dropping, of course.
Of course.
And I need to get, no, Father, you come with me. He took me in the cockpit. The next day I went to see Mother in Bradington Road, where the main house is. She gave me a cup of tea, and there was noise at the door, and who walks in? Lady Diana. I said to Mother, I'll go to the chapel. No, you stay. I said, no, Mother, I'll go to the chapel. No, you stay. So I had to stay beside her. She came in, they talked, and all this kind of thing. And eventually, about 20 minutes later, she was leaving.
What's happening in this photograph, and where was that?
This is in 1990. This was at the beginning, early stages of the AIDS pandemic in those days. And Mother opens the first house for people dying of AIDS. And this is one of the homes in New York, it was, called The Gift of Love. That's the name of the house. And she just gets people, nobody wanted them. Everybody was scared of them. And she opens this house, and she has some nuns looking after them. And she asked me to go and work in this house, which was an amazing privilege.
And yourself going to a house like that back then with...
Terrified.
That's what I was going to ask.
Funny thing is that the first superior was a leper girl who had become a nun, you know?
Yes.
So she was not frightened of anything. And we would work with our hands. If anybody came, like a doctor came or the ambulance came, They would be all dressed up with PPCs, you know, that you wouldn't recognize them. We had to work with our hands.
There's another photograph here where you have met not just one, but we have a second saint.
This was after the Bosnia War. And I was asked by the Missionaries of Charity in Rome to go to tend to the sisters in Bosnia because they found it difficult for a priest to go. English-speaking priest, they had priests there. But English-speaking priests to go and attend to the nuns, their language, their liturgical language is in English. When everybody was running out of Bosnia during the war, they stayed. All the houses were bombed in their street except theirs. And they just had old people and children abandoned. And you know how they used to feed themselves? All the chicken running in the street and the eggs they laid, they'd pick them up for the amazing. And after I came back from Bosnia, I was asked to go and meet with the Holy Father.
And is that what you were discussing then?
Yeah. In fact, he was saying, thank you for looking after the nuns. And I'd just been made a Monsignor just before this. So I arrived in Rome to go to Bosnia, but with normal clothes. And when I came back, I was asked to go and see the Pope. I didn't have nothing, a soutane or anything. So one of the nuns took me to this wardrobe, and we were looking for one, and that one fitted me. And it belongs to a cardinal.
Yeah.
And this guy was a Pope's secretary. He's the only one who noticed, you were wearing the wrong cassock. And I said, I know. I don't have one. In those days, as you can see, I had hair in my head.
And that must have been a great moment to meet him.
Oh, that was a great moment. The thing is, you can see in his eyes, he was really interested what was happening there. You know, he was really wanting to know what suffering is there, what pain, what you can just imagine the effects of war.
Also here in Gibraltar, you work as a chaplain in the local prison.
I do, yeah. That is one of my ministries. It's a very, very special ministry, a very blessed ministry.
And what does it mean to those prisoners for you to visit them once a week?
I think it affirms them. But that's not the reason why one goes, certainly not as a priest. We do to bring them life, you know, the life of, the only life that there is, which is the one that comes from the heart of Jesus. And there is no mechanism to do this. You just go and you are present. Remember, priesthood is in itself a sacrament. I just go to accept them as they are. And I am sure that the grace of God does a lot of good in it, you know. I know.
Father, we're on the Upper Rocks Nature Reserve and we're getting a great view down over the bay. Could you tell us, how has Gibraltar changed over the years?
Well, physically, obviously there's been a lot of building. That is reclaimed land. There was nothing there at all.
Just water?
Just water.
As we have went through the years and you've grown up, Gibraltar has actually physically got bigger.
Yeah. And of course, you're looking that way and you see that obviously we are very limited in space.
Yes.
So here, airspace is very valuable.
Right. And that's why you have so many high-rise apartments. What I've been noticing with Gibraltar, it's very multicultural. There is many cultures here and religions. How does the Catholic faith fit in with all of that?
We live with each other, which is, I think, what is important. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, each of us has something to offer the other. We've got a very strong Jewish community. We have a Muslim community, Hindu. We all get on very well with each other. We all respect each other. They respect us. We're the majority, but that they don't respect us because we're the majority, but because naturally the church is very much alive here, and they recognize it, you know.
What would you say to a young man, just like yourself, at 18, considering the priesthood, wondering, is it for them?
Every little thing could be a sign that God is wanting them for himself. And there is nothing greater in life. There is nothing greater in life than doing the will of God. I was very fortunate. Only a packet of cigarettes made me move. But sometimes it's so ridiculous that that we miss the calling. And I would tell you something, I mean, it's not, I don't want to sound that this has been easy going all the while, you know, I mean, nothing is. But it is worth it, very much so.